Hi everyone, welcome to the Record Lab podcast. My name's Nathan. I'm a music producer, songwriter, and audio engineer from Toronto, Canada. This podcast is a platform for music creators to speak on their involvement in the creation of a record. When a song is made, there's a whole team of people involved in the process that the general public typically doesn't know about. And I want to make this process more known for everyone. On today's episode, we have a very special guest. He's an award-winning educator, music producer, and audio engineer. After graduating Travis Institute with a diploma in audio engineering and music production, our guest found work as a sound effects designer for the company Sound Ideas. This company has provided sound effects for major film production studios, including Warner Bros., Universal, and 20th Century Fox. He later moved on to work as a recording engineer for Number 9 Audio Group, running many sessions for artists and voiceover talents. As a freelance engineer, he has worked as a podcast producer, mixing engineer, post-production audio editor, and music supervisor for feature-length films Red Pine City, Cape Holly Christmas, and Black Mariah. He also works alongside the well-known tech company Avid, showcasing their emerging hardware and features within Pro Tools. He currently works as an audio instructor, teaching emerging music creators the fundamentals of music production and audio. Without further ado, the Record Lab podcast would love to welcome my friend and colleague, Kenny Nguyen.
Nathan, wow. What an introduction. Thank you so much for having me on the Record Lab podcast.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So I think I just want to start off by talking about, what have you been up to recently?
So most recently, I've been working as a producer, project manager for a few podcasts. One of them is the Game Breakers Network, which I'm really excited to be working on. It's a lot of different hats. In addition to the on-site recording, I'm also doing the mixing and mastering, working with different sound effects for transitions and B-roll that we have. So the Game Breakers is all about, entertainment, sports, esports, gaming. So
that's cool.
Yeah, it's really fun. And it's one of those things where it's me personally, I don't play games or I don't watch sports, but an audio engineer, an audio person is needed. So, it's still fun to kind of live, I guess, through that without being super attached to that world also. In addition to podcast work, I also do mixing and mastering. I'm currently working on a few short films in association with some students at Humber. They've got some projects. So I'm not doing any composition there. I'm just mixing and mastering and sending it back to them. So
that's awesome.
For me, yeah, I love working on that kind of stuff. Mixing and mastering, a little bit of a hot take here, but mixing and mastering just a song on its own is, I guess, relatively easy compared to working in post-production. Because
I believe that 1,000%.
Yeah, you really have to be mindful about the context, what's going on with the dialogue, the story. You need to leave room for, in terms of frequency, but also in terms of I guess dynamics. What do you want the listener to focus on? So it's, doing the polish and making things sound clear and crisp, but you also need to make sure you're not overcooking it and you leave some room for other elements to shine, like sound effects and music. So, and dialogue, it's the trifecta. I always say it's the trifecta. It's the D, M, and E, the dialogue, the music, the effects. It's about getting them all to play nice together. So there's that. I also do, lessons. I do guitar lessons. I offer Pro Tools lessons as well, one-on-one and also online. And in addition to podcasting, working as a mixing and mastering engineer, I also am an audio and film professor. And it's a lot of fun to be able to pass off my experience and my knowledge, my expertise to other people. I think it's always, for me, it's always been about giving back. It's pretty big shoes to fill when I think about my mentors and, what they kind of passed on to me as well.
I'm the exact same way, honestly, to touch on that, because it's you taught me a lot of the stuff I know, and the people that do teach me, I've noticed it's a similar pattern. It's my mentors taught me this, so it's my job to pass it down. And I'm the same way now, where it's when I meet new engineers or creators, I like to share the stuff that I know with them. And I hope that they end up sharing that. Because it's weird. It's almost it's a generation of knowledge just getting passed down and passed down and passed down and passed down. Because there's so many, the thing is with mixing and engineering specifically, in that sense too, it never ends. Because with mixing specifically, it's so subjective that there's so many different opinions on what is good and what isn't good. And when a person develops a technique, it's another person who has that technique may not think it's the best technique. But then you find another engineer and they may say, yes, this is great. I wish I knew this. I'm going to pass it down. So it's like there's so much knowledge to be absorbed that it's good to just keep passing things to people. Because then if they like it, they don't have to use it. If they do, they do. And then it's cool.
Exactly. Yeah, totally agree. You take everything with, I guess, a grain of salt. You kind of pick and choose, even though you have conflicting information, you just kind of make a educated guess.
Yeah.
And not speak so much in like absolutes and how things should be or what's right or what's wrong. It's very, and I think that's the thing too. It's an artistic endeavor. It's like, and when it comes to making decisions that are artistic, there's no right or wrong. It's just, you make a choice and then you kind of live with it. And then, learn from it also.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, cool. I put that out there. I did that thing and I would have changed this, but hey, next time, I've made some changes and you just keep refining and getting better. And, without rambling too much about this topic, it's, I think, different in this generation where there's so much information available. Before, it was like there was so little. There wasn't, you couldn't just, look up on social media or on YouTube or on the internet, like techniques for these things. Like you'd had to have a mentor to pass that down to you. So now it's almost kind of weird. You run into someone that's kind of holding those things back and keeping secrets. It's like, all right, that's kind of weird. Like I can learn that from like anybody else. I don't know why people are protective about, like plug-in chains or like vocal chains or certain settings. There's so much information out there. It's a blessing and a curse where it's like you can't accept everything as amazing advice or great tips or something, but you can just keep adding and adding into your arsenal, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess now I want to talk about like give me a little bit of your backstory of like how you got into music, like growing up or like, because I know you went to school for it too. So
I did go to school for it. So I guess it would start even before high school. I was very, I would say, sheltered. I spent a lot of time indoors growing up, playing a lot of video games. But one thing I really liked about that was the music. And I feel I really resonated with like soundtracks, game soundtracks, the music that was, a part of those things. And the idea that, teams of people had to decide on the type of music that would be appropriate for video games. And then the people playing the games would just kind of, absorb that and feel as if that was part of the experience as well. So that was my introduction to, music. And then eventually I wanted to learn how to play instruments. So high school, picked up the bass, a little bit of the guitar. Like some people have heard, I never had, like Rock Band was kind of my introduction to playing drums.
Yeah.
And yeah, never took any lessons for that, but it's kind of the same thing, hand-eye coordination. All of that led me to play into bands in high school. And there was like Battle of the Bands I would always play in and every year.
Did you play Guitar Hero?
Yeah, I also played Guitar Hero, which is a lot of fun. And I feel like, yeah, that's a gateway drug for a lot of people, playing like video games and kind of emulating it. And they're like, okay, like I wonder what the real thing is like. Sort of a small sidebar here, playing, like skateboarding video games got me into actual skateboarding. I wanted to buy one. And so in the same way that was the lead into skateboarding, my lead into music was consuming it so much. And I was like, I wonder what it's like to like learn an instrument. It'd be really cool to play in a band. Like I want to actually get out of the house and stop playing video games. So anyways, in high school, the whole thing was, okay, like I'm learning people's songs. We're doing covers and we're writing some original music, but I know nothing about the engineering side, like recording studios, like all of that was totally foreign to me. And in high school, they didn't teach about audio technology. It was just like, play the sax. And, I'm not going to, trash the school that I went to because I had really great music teachers. It's just the school that I went to didn't offer like audio recording or digital audio. Like there was no information about that stuff at that school at that time. So going to, post-secondary seemed like the best option for me. It was, I think of it like a curtain or a veil. It's like as a musician, you learn to play music and read tabs or read sheet music. But when it comes to taking a song from an idea, recording it, mixing and mastering it, and then releasing it, like what are those steps? Like, so for me, that was all foreign. I had no idea what any of those processes were like. So the idea was, okay, maybe I'll go to school, hear it from the professionals in a very structured way, because, YouTube University wasn't cutting it for me either. I needed someone to walk me through from the ground up, foundational.
Yeah. No, I like that a lot. Like, even with what you were saying, like with the video games and stuff, I didn't realize how much that also like impacted my music too, and like how I got into it. Because I'm remembering, I talk to you all the time about Call of Duty Zombies, but like there's little perks that you drink in that game to make you like stronger and stuff, and they all have their own songs. So one's like, no, you need a quick revive. Like there's a bunch of them.
I didn't know that.
I forget how, there's a bunch, but if anyone knows what the Juggernog perk like theme sounds like, please comment down below, because I know it, but I can't remember it right now. But yeah, like you're right, because like the high school I went to, for example, didn't have, like there was band, my friends were in band, but I wasn't in band. But I played band like growing up, but not in high school. And there also wasn't like a lot of those music cool courses. I know there was like a couple schools that offered like some of the audio based ones, but I didn't have that either. And like I chose to go to school like because I wanted to make my own instrumentals at one point, so I could do covers was originally the idea. And now here I am, like making my own beats and writing and doing all that, which I never thought I'd ever get to. But it's like, I guess we both have that similarity where it's like we wanted to learn more, just don't know where to start.
Right. And like, I think, but yeah, there's a parallel there. Cause like you said, you're learning,
YouTube University.
Yeah, YouTube University, DAWs, how to set up a mic, like audio interfaces. Like you're just kind of figuring it out yourself. But at the same time, I think for both of us, it was like covers, right? With covers for you, it was like recording yourself and reproducing the instrumentals. For me, it was like I was covering songs in bands. And like when I was trying to improve my bass playing, my guitar playing, it was learning other people's songs to be like, okay, now what if I wrote my own song? Like, what would that be like? So I feel like a lot of the learning comes from emulation. Like when you first start out and you look, it gives you something to aim at, and then you can kind of reference, where you're at with what that is. And, I actually tell this to my students too, because I think that's a good curiosity to have, where it's like, what you love, what you listen to and what you like, but you realize that there's such a gulf. There's like a discrepancy between what you listen to and what you make. And the discovery and the curiosity, the unanswered question should be, how do I get from where I am to there? Like, what are the missing pieces? What are the steps I need to take to level up and like make stuff like that? Because it's possible. Like it's out there. Like someone's doing it. So how do I get there? What am I doing wrong? What could I do better? I think it's a good curiosity. And lastly, I'll say, that's what I love about being a mentor, a professor, a teacher, is students keep me sharp. I can see new students like coming in, and I can see that they've still got, the light and the fire and the drive to learn and get better. And for me, it's just a reminder, that's, I've been in those shoes before. I remember what it was like starting out and being like, I want to just absorb everything and learn as much as I can. So get my hands on as much gear as possible. That's, learn by doing, I would say. Yeah,
that kind of leads into our next topic of how we met. So if anyone didn't know, but Kenny was my old instructor. We both went to Trebas Institute, and he was my instructor. Do you remember how we first met?
No, I don't remember exactly how we first met.
It's funny. Like, I don't think we actually like met, but I came to the open house like way back in like September of 2022, I think.
Wow.
And I remember telling my mom, I was like, it's a Saturday, like, would you be able to take me to Toronto so I can go to this open house? And she's like, sure. And then we drove up, and I remember I was there. I was so shy back then too. Like I didn't talk to anybody.
Okay.
But I remember you were playing like the Bohemian Rhapsody stems, and I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. And I was like, wow. And I remember I wanted to talk to you after, but I was so shy because I didn't like speaking to anybody at that time. But I remember, because even my mom says this is funny, I don't think you know this, but you remind me a lot of my cousin too. That's a very similar like personality, even looks too. It's like, but then I went in my first day, and I don't think I had MIDI that day, but then you were my MIDI instructor and you taught me how to do, I knew like a little bit beforehand of how to get away with MIDI and play chords and stuff. That was my main thing, was like chords. I could do that a lot. But when it came to like drum programming, you really like enabled that in me. You're like, use Groove Agent, and started doing the whole thing.
Yeah. And I think that's it. It's, people are often surprised in open houses and when I talk about, and even just not even myself, just like when people hear about using MIDI in like 2025, and I guess at that time, 2022,
Oh, wow.
people are like, oh, it's like a lost art. Wow, people still use MIDI. It's like, yeah, we have controllers and there's still a lot of like people that rely on knowing how to use this stuff to compose and create original things, especially in a world where we're drowning in like samples, like the Splice, I guess, ecosystem and like sample-based music. It's really nice that there's still people that, and places that offer like being able to teach people how to like interact with the music and respond and create original things. And once again, there's no good or evil here. It's just that it just depends on your application. That sample-based Splice approach to film score just doesn't work.
Yeah.
You are like scoring and you're reacting and responding to emotions and, the actors on screen and the story. Like you just need to respond in a way that's more dynamic than a 4-bar loop on repeat would,
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's like, because I remember when I first started that, I was ripping on Splice and samples. Remember, I was like, that's copying. I was like, that's not original. And now there's me who's using Splice every day.
Yeah, all good. Well, I think, you had that conversation with me probably a few months ago where you're like, oh, like I use Logic, but I'm not like, doing any MIDI sequencing. It's all, drag and dropping like audio samples and sequencing like on the timeline, which actually has a different sound than using MIDI, to be honest.
It's a matter too of like, one of the biggest things I'll preach to is like taking a Splice sample, dragging it in, and then just constantly putting it over top of each other. It's not like the best because you could find someone else out there that has that exact same sample and the same like BPM. So I think an important thing when you're taking that approach is you got to change it. You got to do something to it. You got to pitch it down. For me, for example, I EQ it very differently. I pitch it. I add lots of reverb, distortion, like make it sound so different. But it's also a matter of taking both my skills and because I can do MIDI and I can do chords and all of that. And I like to do both. Recently, I haven't been using a lot of Splice. I'm not going to lie. I love it for drums and drum samples, but like melodic stuff, I've been playing a lot more keys, which I love because I've played for a while. But it's finding a good balance to use both that feels creatively fulfilling.
Exactly. And I think that's it. It's like you might be like, okay, I get that like a large majority of like producers and beat makers and a lot of hits out there rely on like Splice samples and packs and stuff. But yeah, it's like your own original flair, your own original flavor, like the dynamics of how you play it and what you're hearing can help set you apart. And also from a legal standpoint, it's good that you manipulate the sample because you can actually get in, some trouble if you, put a song out with an unprocessed sample, although it's royalty free or you've paid for it from Splice, some other song that's out there might already have that sample. So I think you're protecting yourself when you process it, pitch it up, pitch it down, chop it up, stutter, like whatever, reverse it. Like there's so many things that you can do, like pretty cost effective and time effective things to just manipulate it. It would be crazy not to because you're right. It's like so many people have access to the same sounds. So you got to be careful in that way.
It's like, did you hear about Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter? Like that song is a full Splice sample.
Yeah, that I heard.
And the drum loop, like drag and drop, like on top.
Right. With like no processing, you mean? Like it's just that?
Yeah, it sounded the same to me.
Wow.
But I think it got taken off Splice because you're not allowed to use it anymore because it's like a #1 song. So like anyone can't just be like, this is my song and it's just Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter.
Yeah.
But that's like the complications of like how easy it is too nowadays when like to produce something. Because that was just a sample someone made royalty free. Like here you guys go. And now Espresso is a like Grammy award winning song. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you can't guarantee that Splice is going to take things down when your stuff blows up or something, right? Like we don't have the same, I guess, freedom that, Sabrina
Carpenter
would have. I am living under a rock. But yes, Sabrina. Yeah, it just goes to show there are drawbacks, there are consequences to shortcuts and convenience, right? Like just being able to drag and drop is wonderful, but also anyone can do it. So it becomes less valuable too.
So once you finished school, how did you decide which career path you wanted to go down in the audio industry or music industry?
I feel like it was decided for me. I'll explain. At the tail end of my education, I was offered a job to work at Sound Ideas, the sound effects company that was mentioned in your introduction earlier. And for me, it was the whole mindset. It's a scarcity mindset. That's honestly what it is, because I had so many instructors at the time, for better or for worse, would say, not everyone's going to get a job when they leave this place. And you're not going to know everything when you leave audio engineering college. And, like, don't expect to have things handed to you. So for me, it was kind of baked into the idea of going to school for this thing was like, take what you can get. Beggars can't be choosers. It's feast or famine out there. And to hear that there was a job offer on the table and that I had got it, there was a little bit of me where it was like, what if? Like me, I just accepted the first thing that landed across my desk. But at the same time, I was like, if I say no to this and get nothing, then there's regret there too. You never really know what's going to happen. You just got to make a decision and go with it. And yeah, so that's how I decided. I, like most students that are in school these days, don't know what they want to do by the end of it. They're shown a bunch of potential career paths, and all of their professors are in the industry in their own capacity a little bit differently. But no student is actually like, I know I'm going to, well, I can't say everyone's like this, but it's hard to find students that are so clear and are so like focused on like what they want to be when they leave here. Because oftentimes it changes when you are presented with new information, realize there's more jobs than you thought there were. So it was not on my bingo card to like, I'm going to go to Trebas and be a sound effects library person.
Yeah.
So once again, scarcity mindset. I was afraid that I wouldn't get a job graduating. So I took the first thing that came to me, and I'm glad I did, because it was a great experience and got a really great reference out of it. So Sound Ideas, and I still use Sound Ideas regularly for their sound effects libraries, and yeah, find that, it's been a great resource, great learning experience, and a great thing to tell my students as well.
Yeah. Shout out Sound Ideas. Because even like the general public and stuff too, like for the people that don't know a lot about sound and audio, they don't realize that like most movies and TV starts out like pretty quiet. It's like you got some people mic'd up for the scene. Other than that, you're building everything. If the characters are at the fair, you got to pick out that ambience. It's not just recorded there live. Like that's not what it actually sounds like. And you got to add in like a carnival spinning. You got to add in like a clown in the background or something like that. Like it's not as, I'm seeing this on TV and that's actually what it sounds like with a microphone. It's like that was sound designed by a bunch of different people, which is cool because like that's one of the things with this podcast that I want to make known is that audio engineers specifically, like there's a big team of people involved in it that don't really get recognized a lot. But it's like, that's a lot of people's jobs. And that's what a lot of people, there's an art behind that too, is like creating that atmosphere. I guess the next thing I want to talk about is like the creation of a record for you and like how that has looked like in the past with people that you've worked with. Like what is your favorite thing to do as a producer or engineer?
As a producer, engineer, favorite things to do, I love the back and forth working with artists and trying to figure out their vision. It's a lot of fun to try and I think this isn't for everyone, but like the translation where it's like they might be less technical, but they're very creative, very musical, very, they're like able to sing really well, play really well, but they don't know the technical jargon.
Yeah.
And we're oftentimes the translator. When they want something to sound a certain way, we just kind of have to tease it out of them. And I love that process because it's like you're putting words to the thoughts that they have. And maybe they even themselves don't know what they're looking for until you start to kind of work with people. So yeah, I think that's probably the fun in both production and engineering. I know engineering is a lot more technical and you're like listening more critically and trying to solve problems and I guess avoid future problems in mic technique and, I guess just proper recording levels and different effects if you are using any. But yeah, I enjoy both, I would say. I can work on my own and that's totally fine. And I also love working in rooms with, another person or a few people. So it's important to know how to do both, I find. But yeah, it all depends on the project. But yeah, because I've worked on projects where I am the only person, let's say, working on the music score for a feature-length film. And it's like, it's tough because it's
Yeah.
just you working and no one else telling you what to do, how to do it. No one cheering you on. It's just
Yeah.
brute force, focus, get it done, get it across. So yeah, I like both. And the favorite would be, just riffing with people, I would say is the top.
Like the choreography, I like to see it as too. It's like a dance of like, okay, I want you to do it like this now. And then that's what I like too, honestly. It's like vocal producing too specifically. Like you have to be so exact with them to be like, this is how I want you to do it exactly like this, or like try it again this way, and make them feel comfortable too. Which kind of leads into my next question of like, how would you make an artist if they were like shy and they weren't feeling the most comfortable to record? How do you bring them out of their shell?
So it's one of those things where I feel like doesn't really get taught in school or anything. But yeah, it's just like, I don't know if I've made this connection before, but like I used to work in like retail and stuff. And it's like an industry of people. And like, you really need to know how to like handle people with care. And my analogy for this is like when you're working with musicians and creative types, you got to be gentle. You got to be respectful, about their ideas and what they're bringing to the table. And maybe they're used to recording in their comfortable space at home, and those are demos. And now they're being forced to, be in a professional environment. Someone else is listening to them, and they get kind of nervous and stage fright. Even though it's not a stage, you still get those kinds of things. You get nervous because the conditions are different, or you got cameras pointing at you. You got fancy mics. Like you think you're comfortable until the things start rolling and you freeze up and you stutter and whatever. So my tips for that, and it's just about being comfortable and figuring out what everyone needs. It's like being lighthearted about it, right? Not being too clinical and being rigid about how you want them to record. You kind of have to draw a line. It's like, I want to get a solid recording out of this, but that also entails, having them be comfortable. And sometimes making the artist comfortable comes at the expense of having a good recording. It's kind of weird, but like, you got to pick your battles because you can't have both all the time if they want to have some kind of comfort thing with them. Or be communicated in a certain way. And I think this has to deal with like, once again, back to retail and like, there's different ways to say things and you got to know how to let people down gently. And I've learned this in, being a professor. I've learned this also, this is also, I guess, something recent. I was a judge, adjudicator for the singing contest with John Santos, which was sponsored by Long and McQuaid. And there's youth and there's juvenile like categories. And it's not that you have to be disingenuous, but you certainly need to figure out.
Let them down gently.
Let them down gently. But like when you give feedback, obviously you have to like offer some things that went really well and compliment and like positive encouragement. And then also give them some room to grow and be like, if you want to kind of get to that next step, this is what you need to do. But you can't open with that and crush their hopes and dreams. So that's what I would say. And just be personable. For sure. Like it's not enough to be like technically knowledgeable about this stuff. You need to know how to play ball and like deal with people and be kind, be nice. And if you're funny, like that's even better. They can let their guard down.
Yeah, that's one of the main important things for me, especially when I'm working with other artists. It's like, for me, there has to be a connection beforehand. So let's say there's an artist coming in. I like to talk with them as if like, hey, what do you want to work on? Like, let me listen to your music. What have you been up to recently? Because I like having that connection. So then you're not just strangers when you get in a room together. There's like, oh, it's good to see you. I'm glad we're doing this. Let's get into the session. Rather than like, oh, hi. And it's just like a little awkward. And then they have, like, if you can't even talk to the person, how are they going to sing in front of you is what I think.
I really agree with that. Yeah. And the word I would use is chemistry.
For sure.
And I've learned this, this is pushing retail aside, but like being in bands in high school and stuff, like they think being in a band is like easy and stuff, but it's like the analogy I've heard is like, if you're in a 5-piece band, you're in a relationship with 5 people.
Exactly.
Like, and you have to like respect people and talk to people. And like, sometimes your way isn't always the way of the whole band. Like you just, and also there's the chemistry of actually playing together and that requires listening. And this is back to the connection between engineer and like artist. You need to have this chemistry or producer and artist. It's like there needs to be some kind of chemistry between you two before, like you said, you hit record. You can't just jump. I mean, maybe some people go straight to business, but for me, I prefer to establish that so they can let their guard down. And then when it comes to getting to work, you can get a really solid, comfortable take out of them, and they're not hostile or feeling like they're being grilled when they're trying to sing or something.
One thing I do too to make them feel more comfortable is I make them do stupid shit. Like I'll be like, scream. Like I'll stand in the back of the room and scream the lyrics. Then when they do it, and then it's like, it's funny for them. And it's also like, they'll be laughing by the end of it where it's like, oh my God, now if I sing this take, I don't care if I'm going to be flat or not. It's like, I just screamed in the back of the room. Like it lets down a lot of that pressure. Almost.
Sure.
If you make them do dumb, it's like, sing it like your mouth is full. And then like, if they try to do that, then it's a funny way of like, okay, now I feel more comfortable actually trying to sing the song. Because I've done it stupidly.
Yeah.
I've done it like bad. Now, how worse could it get now that I'm not screaming it this time?
Exactly, yeah. And that's like, I would say that's a pretty good icebreaker to get someone comfortable is just scream.
Scream.
Yeah, because that's not a usual request, but it's like, all right, I'll just do that. And like you said, it's like, okay, I just got that out of me. I don't remember the last time I just screamed.
Exactly.
So now getting onto the mic is easy in comparison.
Yeah, or like sing it in a British accent. Like just do things that they would never do. And then they're trying it out and it's funny. It's like, okay, now sing it like you want to sing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get a performance out of them.
Exactly. Just let the guard down, break the ice, get comfortable, and then you can start to, get to work and have fun while you're doing it. At the end of the day, I think that's what it's all about. It's like, otherwise, why are we here? You got to find some fun in it and that's we've been talking about all the good stuff and like the icebreakers and stuff, but the flip side of that is it's contagious. A sour, crabby engineer can really bring down the mood of like a recording session. And, the producer, the artist can be like, I don't even want to do this. Like, I don't know, you're kind of rude and you're kind of hard to work with. And I feel like I'm being scrutinized and I just want to play my part.
Yeah. But like vice versa too. It's like, it's weird, kind of that double standard. Cause I feel like as an engineer, sometimes you just got to put up with it. Like if the artist is rude to you, for example, you're just like, I'm going to click the buttons and just continue to do what I'm doing.
And we're back to retail where it's like you have someone who
the customer is always right.
But it's also like, oh, this person's being really rude to me. That's more of a reflection of them to me.
Oh, 1,000%.
Maybe they're having a bad day, whatever. Like I have no idea what they're going through. So I'm just going to not take it personally and be like, all right, cool, whatever. This person just clearly isn't having a good day. And
put that attitude into the music.
Exactly. Just say that into the mic, random pizza customer. So just channel that somewhere else. But sometimes you're just the punching bag of the day.
Yeah.
And you just got to take it in stride and not be personally affected by it. Whether you're like, that's for any job, really. And I guess that comes with maybe maturity or just experience where you can you can delineate the difference between like constructive criticism and just someone being rude.
Yeah. Oh, 1,000%. You're like, oh, that wasn't nice. They told me to get the fuck out of the room. No, I don't think that's constructive criticism.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Can you please leave gently? Or
can you please like quiet down? We're trying to get like a recording here. It's like, or just move to the other room. It's like, there's a really rude way of saying that. And then there's a way where it's like, hey, actually, like I'm really trying to get a good recording, a good capture here. And you guys are kind of getting in the way of that. So it's like,
yeah, that's why like, I don't love the sessions where it's like, there's like 12 people in the room who are just there to be like loud and they'll support. It's like, did your friend really have to come? Like that's something that I've talked about with other engineers. It's like, how is that person being there contributing to this? Like, are they there giving you moral support or are they there giving you moral support that you need, but in a professional like demeanor? I don't like the studios where it's like, oh, let's make a song and everyone's just loud and drinking and smoking and stuff. It's like, and then nothing's actually getting recorded. It's like just a party rather than a studio session.
Right.
I don't know. I guess that's how I look at recording because I love to get things done is my main thing.
And we're back to the whole, like getting a person comfortable. Sometimes getting someone comfortable requires their friend being there.
Yeah.
Or something, right?
Well, I'm not anti-friend.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
We love friends. But
so once again, you have to weigh it out for yourself. It's like some people are like, nope, just you and me. No one else can come. It's like, all right, but I would be more comfortable if I had like my friend there. It's like, so you just have to weigh it out. It's like, all right, it's going to be a little annoying for me but I get to record this person and work with this person. And it's like, some people, I mean, I guess it depends on where you are. If you got work coming out the yin yang and you can say no to gigs that don't suit you, go for it. But if you're starting out, if you're a nobody with no credits, you can't exactly, once again, we're back to the start again. Beggars can't be choosers. You can't be so picky. You can't be so rigid in the way you want to work. And in a perfect world, it's just you and the artist and you're getting full control. But sometimes you got to let their friend in. And it's like, okay, now they can let their guard down. You don't have to do that. Actually, the friend being there is the icebreaker.
It also depends where you are too, I feel like. Because like, let's say they're like, I need an engineer. Can you come to this studio session? Oh, I'd shut up. If there was people there, I wouldn't really care. I'd be like, fine. But it's like, I guess the way I'm looking at it is like, if you, let's say we have our dream home studio with like a nice setup. And then they're like, I want to bring 10 friends. I'd be like, no. Like,
right,
no
exactly.
thanks.
There's got to be a line that's drawn.
Yeah, but it's like
there.
if you're renting a studio and I'm just there to press buttons on my laptop, I'm fine if you bring your friends and do like a whole thing like that. Because that's what my job is, to be there to record.
Exactly. And you can still do that. But as an engineer, you still need to put your foot down when that party interrupts your ability to hear things critically. It's like, hey, like I'm trying to engineer here. And like, don't want to be a party pooper, but like, did you want to throw up? Did you want to have a party here? Or did you want me to record like a good like capture of this singer or rapper? You can be in the same room that we're recording in, but you need to behave.
I want to talk about a record that you worked on as a recording and mixing and mastering engineer for our friend Holly. Shout out Holly. Harp A Cash, I think, is her stage name or artist name. But the track is called Stood There Alone. And I just kind of want you to talk about like kind of the process of making that song.
All right. So Stood There Alone, shout out Harpakash, Holly Man, a fellow collaborator, and also we're all cut from the same cloth. We all went to audio engineering college together.
Yes.
And it's one of those things where it's like, for me, I try and keep that as separate as, possible in terms of like, because I know some people are really strict on that, like, oh, never be friends with like clients or like business. And things get like kind of messy and stuff. Well, it's different like teacher-student relationship also, where it's like it might look like favoritism if you're trying to partner up with them, and like, does that mean they get better marks or something? So this didn't happen until after Holly had finished the program and I was no longer her instructor. But yeah, it's really great because we realized, oh, like we're done. But now it's like we want to continue working together. Holly, has a lot of songs that need to kind of be put out and stuff. And this was one of those tracks that just kind of sat there and just needed to be put out. And actually, she had presented it to me and was like, what do you think? And I had a lot of thoughts. And I was like, I don't know, like, what do you want me to do with this? Like, are we recreating it? Am I a producer on this? Are we mixing it? Are we mastering it? And it's one of those gray areas where it's like, I don't know exactly what the title is here, but I'm just going to do what I can with what I know to help get this across the finish line.
To help make that record almost. Because she came to you with a song that had a production and everything to it, but it was a matter of, now what do we do with it? How do we make this sound like a radio ready record?
Yeah. And like, where do I fit in that? Because I think that's really important too. Like, regardless of the person you're working with, it's like, even down to where they're showing you a song. It's like, hey, I have a song to show you. It's like, okay, do you want me to put on my like producer hat and listen to it like a production and give you arranging tips or like sample choice and instrument choices? Am I putting on my mixing hat where I'm listening to the balance of everything and I have no say in the arrangement? Do you want me to listen to as a fan, like just a consumer? Like, just tell me if you like the song and what you like about it. Like, don't be technical. Okay. Or do you want me to listen to it from a mastering perspective where it's like, is it loud and clear and competitive and like technically, is it up there? Is it nice and wide? And can I reference it with other stuff? So that's another rabbit hole I'd like to go down, but we'll go down there shortly. Back to Stood There Alone. It was a lot of fun to work with Holly on that. I didn't play anything on that. I didn't, like no bass, no singing. I just took with what's already there and kind of worked with Holly to kind of take it across the finish line. We had worked on it in Pro Tools. We actually made some changes to the song in terms of editing. So creating certain beat cuts and reverses and I learned a lot in working on that, and it was a lot of fun. And it's always fun working with Holly. Because I learn a lot about creative things with restraints. Just to give you a quick example, some of the long bass notes that were being held in that song clashed with certain chords. And because we weren't able to go back and change the MIDI, we just had to come up with clever ways to create fades or like tape stop kind of like effects before that clashing chord came in. So the bass and the chord wouldn't be rubbing and dissonant or something.
Yeah.
So I got to put on like my producer hat for that as well. And I was really happy with the result. Which, I think was a lot of fun, but also a great learning experience. And Holly, I think, will be a long-time collaborator of mine moving forward too.
Did you record her vocals on that too? Or were they already done before?
Yeah, so Stood There Alone was already recorded before.
Okay.
And that's one of those things where it's like you kind of take what you can get.
Yeah.
You can re-record. But at the same time, it presents its own challenges when you just work with what you have and try and make it sound as good as possible.
Sometimes too with re-recording, like sometimes it's only good the first time you record it. And then if you re-record it, you're already working in this sonics, like in your head, you have this sonic space that you've listened to the demo. Like that's something like I think people call it demoitis, where it's like they're so stuck on it with that sound specifically that when it comes to changes, it's a little hard to like be like, oh, I like it, because they're so used to hearing something else. But when I think it was with SZA and one of her producers, I watched an interview, and Rob Beasel, I think is his name, but he produced the song and recorded her. And then as they continued to work on it, he was like, I can't, like, we're already working in this sonic space that it's like, I want to be the one to mix this too. So I can continue that, compared to handing it off to someone who may change that, compared to he produced it and recorded it with her and then went on to mix it later to keep that sonic structure. And that's why, I don't know if you listened to Kill Bill, but that's why that song is so like, it's very unique from everything else on the album. And it just happened to be like the #1 hit song off that album.
Wow, okay.
But do you know that song? It's like, I might kill my ex, not the best I do. That song.
I think I know that
but
one, yeah.
Mix-wise, because I love going down rabbit holes of mixing and who mixed what. I love Genius for that. I will tell you who engineered everything. You can tell the sonic differences between, this one sounds a little different. The low end is mixed very differently in this one compared to the other songs on the album, because that was like one of the songs that was mixed by also the producer and the collaborator to that. So it's about that, like, I find keeping the same sonic elements to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, as long as you can still capture the essence of the song. I mean, it's not uncommon for someone in 2025 to be the recording engineer and editor and mixing engineer and mastering too. Obviously, that comes with its own drawbacks. But it just means more autonomy, more control over the process, where you're like, because that's the thing, when you're like a beat maker / like music producer, in the sense of like working in the program and picking the synths and choosing the samples, like you're kind of already mixing it in a way too.
Yeah.
And if you just, that's almost a barrier where you're like, oh, but I have someone else mixing it, so I don't want to do too much.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like at the end of the day, serve the song. Sometimes it requires you being like, you know what? I should really say, hey, can I mix this? Because I feel like we already know what the song is supposed to be like. And there are some times where you got to let it go and be like, okay, we've taken it as far as we can get. And I think having someone else, a different perspective, mix this song would elevate it even more.
For sure. Yeah.
So there's no one size fits all, but it's nice to hear that people are, I guess, open to both sides.
Yeah, because that's something with me. It's like sometimes I have to find like where to stick in my lane, for example, because like because I do everything, it's like sometimes I don't want to be the one to mix this or master it and stuff like that. Like sometimes I just want to do this, but having the skills from mixing makes me a better producer, 1000%. Because like if mixing and producing and making beats were two separate things and you weren't allowed to do one or the other, I'm not a producer. Like I just can't, because I equally mix as much as I choose sounds and choose, because it goes back to earlier when I was talking about, it's manipulating those sounds, that splice sample and doing that. Because I know how to mix, I know how to EQ and compress those differently to make it sound drastically different compared to the actual sample. So I mix just as much as I like make the beats, which sucks when it comes to like finally getting into a mix session with everything. Like, cause when I make beats, I have so many bus channels already. I'm busting things out. I'm compressing them, multiband, dynamic EQ. And then I have to replicate that again later when I go and do it. But like, I tend to mix a lot making beats too.
Right. And I think that's okay. Where it's like, because the same thing happens. It's like a mixing engineer is going to receive the tracks. It's like, okay, let's talk deliverables. What do they want?
Yeah.
Oh, like bypass any master fader, like effects, any mix bus, like compression or whatever. Like get rid of that stuff or turn off the effects or print those effects and have them so I can blend them in or like add my own version of that effect. Like, so that way they know what it sounded like with the artist as it was being handed off. Whether or not the mixing engineer wants to take that exactly in that state and run with it, or take some of that and run their own direction, that's totally fine. It should not limit you from making it sound good with the artist at that time. Because I think that's reassuring for the artist too. It's like, oh wow, like I got it to sound really good. I did a bit of mixing here, but like, that's okay if you want someone else to take it and continue. Sometimes it's not even a creative difference. It's like you're working with labels. It's like, well, we have to work with this mixing person. This is the person for that label or something. So yeah, you shouldn't be afraid to kind of process in that way. The last thing I'll say about this is, when you're a beat maker, when you're a music producer, and you're a mixing engineer, you are like, your present self is setting up your future self for something.
Yeah.
When you choose great samples and good instruments and you write in a way where, you know, maybe the melody is not in the same octave as the chords and like the harmony is somewhere up here and the low end is not playing notes outside of the low end. Like good, let me see if I can phrase this. Being a good mixing engineer helps you with the, you know, beat making and music production side and vice versa. Like you just know that it would be easier for you to mix if you just produced and had better decisions to make earlier on. It's kind of like mic choice. If you already know mic choice, preamp choice, compressor on the way in, like if you already are the person that's going to mix it, you can afford to make those decisions at the start because you were going to do that anyway when you mix the song. So it's okay to do it on the way in. And you can commit to it. Obviously, if you know your tools and you know the sound that you're going for. But yeah, if you are passing it to someone else, it's like, oh, they don't want me to compress on the way in. They want to compress later. It's like, okay, I'll just record a dry vocal. I'll do my job. That's fine. I'm not here to step on anyone's toes. So yeah.
Yeah, once I learned how to mix like well, it's like my production game stepped up 1,000% too. Because I'm like, oh my God, things aren't clashing anymore. I was like, wow, that's crazy. But it's funny you mentioned like stuff going, like compressing on the way in and stuff like that. Because that leads to my next topic, which is how would you set up for an artist session? Meaning like someone's going to come in and you're going to record their vocals for a song. What is your go-to?
I mean, set up for just like a generic vocal session. It's hard to say because I feel like ahead of time, you're already doing a little bit of research on like the type of singer they are and like what vocal register they're in and how loud they're going to get. And that all informs the mic choice, the preamp you want to use, knowing if there's a mixing engineer down the road, then you don't, you know, that changes how you approach the recording session, I feel like. So, I don't know how to answer this really. I feel like there are some good choices for dynamic mics, condenser mics that I would reach for. That would be a good starting point that can be kind of sculpted into what you need it to be later without forcing it to be something. And yeah, same thing with like processing on the way in. There's some basic compression that I might do on the way in just to control the dynamics a little bit and give the singer confidence as well. And I think that's in this question, that's the part I really want to like double click on is the fact that sometimes committing to recording things a certain way does help give the artist, singer, the performer, whatever, more confidence in the recording session.
For sure.
Right? Like it's like you're at odds with yourself where you're like, well, I was told never to compress on the way in. You can always compress later because if I over compress now, then oh my God, I won't be able to undo that and I've ruined the dynamics and stuff. Yeah, but what if you recorded a little bit and that actually made the vocal sound more full and brought the vocals more up front. And then when the singer's hearing that in their headphones, they feel like, wow, my voice sounds like strong.
Yeah.
I don't have to actually work as hard to sing because the compressor is helping me like kind of get the performance out without having to like belt over these loud instrumentals in my headphones or something. And then reverb is also a big one too,
For sure.
where it's like, I'm not printing with the reverb, but I want to make sure that they have whatever they want, slap back delay, a nice plate reverb, like just that roominess, especially, and back to the comfort piece that we were talking about earlier, it's uncomfortable to hear your dry voice in your headphones.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people aren't used to hearing their voice like that. That's like having someone talk to your ear this close.
Yeah.
It's a very unusual phenomenon to people who aren't used to it. So adding reverb helps them hear their voice in a more natural occurring space. And compression helps, once again, you're not trying to get the singer to blow their voice because they're trying to sing over the instrumentals. Maybe they're uncomfortable and asking for you to turn it down or turn it up. So yeah, in that case, comfort of the performer is higher. And in which case I would adjust my recording chain for my artist differently.
Yeah. Cause I always say like a compressor too, like you're not using it for the sake of like, I'm going to compress your things and like, I want it slamming down and I want it to be super overly compressed. It's like, it's catching those peaks, but also from like a sonic perspective as well. It's like, I always think of like a preamp and a compressor as like my bread and butter. It's like the preamp is each preamp, whether it's like a SSL or if it's a Neve or if it's an API, it's like they all come with their own like tonal characters to them. So do compressors when you're using them. And then there's like perfect, I love my Neve 1073 and my CO1B. That's just me. I love how that sounds. Got to use it in LA, like the actual analog gear, and I loved it. Sounds great. But that to me, like sonically sounds perfectly, and like tonally of the EQ and how it sounds being compressed, I love it. Does that mean I'm going to use it on every artist I use? Maybe. But like, no, you have to really assess it and be like, is this the right fit for a country singer? Is this going to be good for that? But back to the compression point, like it's not for the sake of, I don't use it for the sake of compressing. Obviously, I get like a little bit. I get like 1 to 3, maybe more sometimes.
Yeah, same here.
Just because, like you said, if they're going to start belting or stuff like that, it helps control the dynamics in a way that when it comes out into your DAW, whatever you're using, it sounds clean. Like it sounds clean. You can listen to it dry and it sounds clean. And that's something that took me a long time to realize because I would listen to like studio acapella Justin Bieber. And I'm like, this sounds so good. Like it's dry and you can hear all that stuff, but it's like, but dry to everyone isn't nothing. He's not just singing into a mic. He's singing into like $20,000 preamp, maybe more, $50,000 mic. Like there's like the compressor. There's so much stuff that go into it that it's just like, it's not dry. It's like your preamp is so important. So is your compressor, I think.
There is so much that goes into it. Yeah, you're right. It's like when you listen to an acapella, you think, yeah, like you said, you think it's dry. This is just a naked vocal.
This isn't dry right now. What you guys are, this is not dry right now.
Yeah, exactly. And once again, it's just the idea that you can control, the recording. You can control the monitoring side where it's like, oh, when my singer goes into a more intimate part and they're not singing as hard, like their voice doesn't disappear into the instrumentals or something. Like the compression kind of helps inflate that a little bit too, depending on your settings. Back to what you're saying, catching peaks. We should really, if there's any confusion about like how much compression you should be getting when you're catching peaks. You said 1 to 3. That's good because it's like, okay, it's like, oh, some big words or, P's and B's, whatever.
Yeah.
Like those big attacks, those transient are, being tapped and you can see the needle kind of moving. If you're getting like 6 to 10 and it's never going back to 0, you're not catching peaks. You're just compressing the whole thing and it's just staying compressed and you're just turning the whole thing down. And once again, depends on the song. Maybe upfront rock vocals might be good for that, but that's not what you're talking about. You're talking about like compression that almost doesn't sound like compression. It's transparent, which is the term that I hear being thrown around. And I use that too, where it's like you can't hear the compression, but it is doing its job.
Yeah, because you have to remember, like when you go to mix the song or whatever, you're going to compress so much more than that. So if you're starting off like slamming your compressor, later down the line, that's going to be hard to fix that because you are printing that going in compared to like, I set it up in a way where it's going into the box, but it's just the tone itself. Like that dry vocal, which isn't dry, but it's like the preamp compressor is setting up the tonality for the rest of the song, I feel like.
Right. And I guess a shout out UAD.
We love them.
That we're using a universal
Send
audio.
me a satellite, please.
Yeah. I mean, what I love about like UAD is, being able to have your effects in the monitor chain or the input where it's actually recording the effects you have in the UAD console. So you can give the artist the confidence they want without committing to that in the recording.
Yeah.
Or both, where it's giving them the confidence, but that's actually the sound that you want. So you record with it too.
Yeah.
Right? So it's nice to have that flexibility. Not all audio interfaces offer that. So I think it's nice, to kind of hear what things would sound like later. Because that's the thing. It's like, I've kind of been in sessions like that too, where it's like, hey, can I get a bit of reverb? It's like, no, we're not going to have reverb because we're going to mix it and have reverb later. It's like, can you like compress my voice a little bit? No, because it's like, oh, you can't have it one or the other. Like, I just want to hear, it's like, so comfort over everything. Make sure people feel at home. And effects can go a long way.
For sure. And that taught me, even recording like stuff with other people and like my own music, it's like how you sound is going to be detrimental to the performance that you're going to give. Because for a long time when I first got into making music, I would record literally into the mic. No reverb, no autotune, no nothing.
Oh, same here.
When I got into a studio with other like professional engineers for the first time ever, and I listened to how I sound, I'm like, oh, there's reverb on here. This sounds picture perfect. There's autotune on it, but not because like, not to the point where it's like T-Pain, but it's like, it's corrective. And when you hear that you're hitting these notes, even though maybe some of them you're not hitting, it's like, it helps you perform better and it helps you get into that zone of, I'm going to record this. That's why my monitoring chain for other people too, it's the same one I use, but it's all, shout out UAD again, but it's all on their monitor path. And I set it up in a way where it sounds good and you can hear it. Like I normally print in because that's just like my preference, but sometimes you can create your own like design of how you want it to sound, add all these plugins just to make the artist feel comfortable and to make them feel like they sound fucking great. And then they're going to perform great as well because you're making that sound good in their headphones. And that I think is really important.
Yeah, it's twofold. You saying that, it's for me two things right now. I'm sure it's more than two. But the idea of like you can use effects to your advantage to give people confidence they may not have or may have, but could give them a little boost, a little push. And the other thing is like making them feel comfortable, but also like knowing how to push them a little bit too. There's a huge upside potentially waiting for them. That the artist might enter some uncharted territory with an awesome chain and the right chemistry with the engineer and artist. You might end up with something really special and you might miss out on that if you're afraid to take some risks. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'll never forget the first time like I got to sound, because every engineer is different too, because it was like at one of those camps I went to, shout out B-Cape. But like there were so many different rooms to work in and it's like each engineer has their own thing. I would go into one room and I sound great. I would go into another room, I sound good. There was another room where I'm like, I don't like the way I'm sounding because it doesn't sound like how it sounded back there. And now I'm thrown off because it's like, I don't feel like I sound good anymore. But it's also just a matter of like practicing too. It's like practicing. That's one thing too I'll preach to singers who are just getting started too. It's like, there is a difference, and it's something I've learned recently. There's a difference between a good singer and there's a difference between a good singer who can record. It's two different talents, I think, and you can easily learn how to become one. Right. Because I've been with I've seen such great singers before and been around them and like they're amazing. But back to that terminology thing you were talking about too, like when they get in front of a mic, they maybe don't know what like being in time with the song is. They have a great voice, but have they ever recorded over a track before? It's because it's back to that choreography thing of like recording and comping takes too. That's something that you learn how to do as you record. And I'm saying that from experience. When I first started recording, I would just, what did my friend say? It was really funny. She's like, finding your own beat or chasing the beat or something like that. Okay. Because I didn't know where to start. And that's why when I always record now, I'm listening to a click. I love staying in time. And it makes the engineer's job a lot easier as well if you're in time. Absolutely. There's a lot, you don't need to cut things and do that. But
if anyone is starting out and you like to sing and want to get into making music and recording it, go on GarageBand. There's a lot of very user-friendly things. Go in your voice memos. Practice playing to like a tempo. Practice singing over a track and recording it and getting that down. Because once you go into like an actual environment, you're like, this is so familiar. I've practiced this. I've done this, rather than getting into the studio and just singing how you normally would. Sometimes there's a little bit of prep work that needs to be done for that for you to be fulfilled with that as well.
It all comes down to preparation and of trying to avoid future problems if you can.
Yeah.
Well, one of the points you made earlier about, a talented singer that performs on stage, like what works live on stage isn't always what's going to work in the studio.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
One big example, and this ties into the singing competition I had to judge for, is vocal control. Because it's funny, like you can praise a singer for having really great control. They're belting a really big note and you can see them pulling the mic away and compensating for how loud they are and then coming back for the rest of their voice. Like, if you think about it, it's kind of like they're automating the volume of their own voice.
Yeah.
Actually, the live sound person is probably thinking, oh, this is great. They're not they're not like, screaming that loud into the mic with that mic up close to them, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't also work in the studio. When you're in the studio and you want to belt a really big note, well, you actually lose proximity, the low end, the clarity, you're maybe off axis on the mic. Like, once again, like it's just two different things. You're still singing into a mic, but once again, it's not like one-to-one. You can't expect something to work on stage to work in the studio. And yeah, it's just one of those things, even down to the process of how people comp. I'm going to piggyback off your idea here. Comping vocals, that is foreign to people, where it's like, oh no, we got the right take. We're just going to copy the chorus and put it over to the second chorus. And they're like almost offended, where they're like, can I not sing? Like let me do that. I'll sing it. Like they're not used to this copy, paste, drag and drop kind of thing.
It's like two different worlds, and then like getting merged into one at first can be like scary, because I didn't know copy and paste. I thought when a singer gets in there, you sing from start to finish, done, and they're all one take.
I thought this, and I think a lot of people think the same too, and that's what they see when they watch like a YouTube clip of their favorite artist in the studio. They don't see them punching in for every single word and line and comping
like I think Billie Eilish does like 80 different comps in like one take of hers. It's like it's like a whole different universe.
I would say so.
Which is easy to get into. I think it's very easy to get involved in. Like, I know we were talking about YouTube Academy, but YouTube Academy has some great tutorials
YouTube
on that.
University,
Yeah. Like it's honestly like, it's very easy to practice and very easy to learn, especially too if you play an instrument as well. Like staying in time with your stuff too, like playing down chords in MIDI. That's how I learned too, because MIDI, you can quantize it to make it like in time.
Yeah, you can only benefit from you can only really reap the benefits of quantization if you're playing to a reference or a click. If you're not, then quantization to a quarter note or an eighth note means nothing, because you weren't playing to one anyway. It's actually going to take a lot more work. So yeah, I'm with you. Practice playing in time, getting a sense of rhythm, counting to 4, go to a show, clap along to the beat, clap on the 2 and 4, not the 1 and 3. So
tune, bat, BPM finder, and key finder, gold. Use it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But for the most part, if I'm ever listening to a song that, let's say I want to do a cover of, and I find the instrumental, what am I doing before I put it into my DAW? I'm finding the BPM. Because now when I'm listening to my click in my ears, if it's 132, it's perfectly in time compared to if I just throw it into a random track with a random BPM. Like especially I feel like that's an engineer's worst nightmare. It's like that, and then trying to drag it that's not on the grid, but trying to line up every vocal to match and everything. Like it's like, it can be so difficult. So I think learning BPM, even there's tap tempo apps on the phone. There's so many things you can do. Learning that will help you become a better recording artist and vocalist, like singing wise, and help your rhythm.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of benefits to that. Like if you're into DJing, if you're into production, if you're trying to sing, like rappers also, like having a sense of rhythm, knowing how to rap in triplets and quarter notes and like different divisions, phrasing, breath work, like all of that stuff requires you to understand a little bit of music theory and rhythm and like subdivisions of time and time signatures and stuff. Yeah, it's one of those things where it goes a long way. And like you said, it's like engineer's worst nightmare when they're dealing with something off the grid. Now, you just got to assess the situation at the moment.
Sure.
You can't control if the band knows how to play to a click or not. But in that heat of the moment, the band needs the chemistry of everyone playing at the same time without the restraint of a very rigid click.
I think that's so important too, especially with bands. Like it's the chemistry aspect of it all, because it's like I said, if you just throw them in a studio and all of them are hearing their own click in their own headphones and what they're doing, it's like, we need to hear this group of like what we do. And like, this is what we do when we play together. Because when you guys are practicing, you're probably not using a click. You guys are just jamming out, playing the songs together. And like sometimes like leaning into that manufactured click sound destroys the actual art of the band, I feel like.
Yeah.
It all depends on the genre too. Like especially even thinking stuff, like the way I record acoustic music is so different than how I do like normal like pop or R&B.
Right.
Because like acoustic things sometimes sound much better when it is in one take. When it is in one full thing, it makes it feel real and less processed. And that's what I do appreciate about music, where it's just like a guitar and a couple stomps and a vocalist. It's like, it sounds really like not live, but like less artificially processed, like less engineered almost in a way.
Yeah, not overproduced.
Less drag and drop, copy paste.
There
like,
you go.
Yeah.
This is, once again, looping back to our earlier point about knowing how to approach a situation when someone gives you something to listen to. I've made a lot of mistakes where I'm like, they're asking me about my opinion. Here's what I think of the recording. Here's what I think about the mix. Here's what I think about the master. Here's what I think about the arrangement. And then I've got to email back being like, hey, the song's out already. Like, thank you for all the feedback. But like, it's already,
the worst
I've
feeling.
already put it out and then you're giving me so many pointers. And like, I can tell you spent a lot of time on this. So
that's awful when you submit something to DistroKid and they're like, you should change this. I'm like,
yeah.
Thanks. But
it would be better with this. It's like, actually, it's already done, but thanks.
Yeah. And that's also when you have to realize too that it is subjective. Mixing is so subjective that if someone were to say that, it's like, you could find someone else who would say the same thing. You could find someone else that would 1,000% disagree with them. You could like, it's a lose-lose, win-win situation kind of.
Yeah, you can overshare.
Yeah.
Especially if you're an eager like audio engineer and you just offer way too much and then you end up kind of putting people off because it sounds like you're almost like a control freak.
Exactly. It's like you're criticizing their moves.
Verbal diarrhea. And it's like, I just wanted you to listen to the song. Or I give them so many notes and they're like, yo, I just put that together in like 30 minutes. I just wanted to show you something cool. I didn't want you to like give me a like autopsy or like whatever.
Yeah. That kind of ties into our next topic too that we were talking about like a little bit earlier, is like musical influences and like the music you listen to versus the music you make. And are they similar? Are they not? Because back to that thing where it's like being so surgical with things. For the artists that I love listening to and who influence me to make the music I do, I go to that and I listen and I'm critical. I'm like, this low end is really tight in this part. The harmonies on this specific part of the pre-chorus help create this tension that I love in this part. Compared to, it's like, if I'm listening to some folk artist that I have no intention of making music like them, I'm not listening to any of that. I'm not listening to how it's mixed or any of that. And it's back to that like critical analytical listening versus listening for enjoyment. And that's where it becomes very like, you have to find a way to separate both. It's really hard, but find a way to separate and listen to things in a way that's like, I'm listening to this because I want my music to sound this specific, like sonic and tonal way.
Right. Yeah.
Versus I'm just listening to this because I'm in my feels and I want to have a good time with it.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of parallels with post-production also. It's like, do I want to sit and watch this movie and criticize every little thing that's happening and be that annoying person to watch a film with? Or can I just sit and enjoy and like shut myself up and, you know, just watch a movie and try and get into it?
Yeah.
Music is the same way. There's some music, you know, I listen to just for enjoyment and also for the sense of like purpose, like a utility. Obviously, you know, for me, lo-fi music is really great. I love like synthwave, vaporwave, that kind of stuff. And it's I know, people would be like, oh, that's like background music. It's like Muzak, elevator music. It's just whatever. It's just filler. It's just, yeah, I can't really name any artists in specific, but yeah, I'll listen to anything between like drum and bass, like EDM, house. And this is back to, I guess, the conversation about presets and like having a fixed vocal chain and stuff. It's like, if you're working with an artist and they're paying you and they're happy with the way they sound, don't reinvent the wheel every time. Like when they show up and they're like, hey, all right, I'm excited to start recording this new song. That last song was really great. And you're like, awesome, cool. I have a different mic for you. We're going to use a 1073 Neve preamp instead of this like API preamp. And instead of using the CL1B, I've got an 1176 clone from Warm Audio.
Yeah.
I don't, what? For me, it's like, wait, I didn't at any point, like, I'm all like, for the sake of experimenting, experiment, go for it. But paying client that's already happy with what you got, you don't need to try new things all the time, unless they're the ones kind of proposing it. Like, all right, I know we always use this chain, but like, I saw this video and this person's using this mic. Then you can play around. But like presets can, save you time. You just load it in and it's going to sound good. And that artist already loves that sound. So there's many benefits to doing that. And then you also got to be open to breaking that up and like trying something new too. But don't reinvent the whole thing.
Exactly. That's why like I have recording templates I use all the time. I've had the same one since September and I should change it. But the thing is, every time I load that, I'm changing something in it immediately.
Sure. Yeah. It's a jumping off point.
I'm going into it and I'm picking like UAD showed it again, but like they have I used to use the, I think 1176 like Rev E. Now I'm using the SE for whatever reason. Because I'm like, you know what? I feel like it's doing the same job, but tonally for this record that I'm working on, I want it to sound a certain way in my head that I'm envisioning. And then it's like a playground, but you got to know what you're doing when you're doing it. You can't just be like, I've never used this one. I want to use it. It's like, I'm picking this because it's a similar compressor to one I was using before. And I know it's going to do the same job, but tonally it's going after something I think would be very good in an R&B track. That would not be good though in a country track, which I've recorded something else on. I've never recorded country. That was an example, but
no, that's okay. And that's one of those things where you like
learning the technique of it and learning what it does is really important. On the topic of techniques, what would be a technique that you've learned that you think like changed your whole like perspective or like always stuck with you and that you would share with everyone?
So are we talking production technique or you mean like
it could be
mic
both.
technique?
It could be anything. Anything that to you were like, I'm going to use this now and remember this for the rest of my life and this will change how I work as a producer or engineer.
All right. So music production, things that have stuck with me. Yeah. Like spend time finding the right sounds. I know that people can spend a lot of time on finding the right snare and the right kick and like scrolling through lots of lists and sample packs. But how many times is that snare going to be hitting that song? Maybe 95% of that song is that snare. So like really make it count. Like those decisions you make early on, if they are decisions that help the mix and like the direction of the song, like spend that time there because you don't want to be kicking yourself later for having made the wrong choice or knowing that you could have made a better choice, right? So yeah, I think it's just owning it, committing to it and being like, I made that choice. This is what I'm going with. And I think that's it. That's probably a broad technique that I want to, I guess, share is like learning how to not be stuck in this mindlessly mixing mindset where you're like, I've made the song, I've recorded the bits, and now I'm mixing it, but I got this new plugin now, and I'm going to go back and change out the snare, and now the mix, the kick is, like the relationship of things start to change, and then you end up in this weird loop where it's like, all right, I'm on the mastering stage, but now that I'm hearing this back, like I've got this 808 plugin that sounds better than the 808 sample that I used, and it's like, you just never get anything done. But if you just respect the process and be like, all right, the recording is done. Now I'm mixing. The mixing is done. Now I'm mastering. If you just respect those different processes, like you're handing it off from one person to another. Even if that person is yourself, you will move forward with your projects, and I think you will grow because you get used to completing things and putting things out. And that's how you learn, is the game and tape of like going back and like, all right, I put that song out, it's released, it's done. There are still things I would change about that, but I can only apply that to new things that I do moving forward.
To kind of wrap up this episode, I love to ask this to the guests, it's favorites. It's a whole like favorite segment of what's your favorite plugin at the moment? What's your favorite reverb? What's your favorite? Just like give it all. We want to know your favorites.
I mean, let's start with favorite reverb. I mean, most used Deverb, Avid Pro Tools, just the stock reverb. It's just every time I pulled it up and sent a voice there, especially artists, they've just been fine with the way it sounds. It just gets you there pretty quick with pretty easy to use controls. I know it's not flashy, but it's pretty reliable. Third-party reverb, love Little Plate from Sound Toys.
Oh, I never used it. I've always wanted to.
It's really nice. And I love automating that little knob until it's infinity reverb. And you can use it for some really cool intros and outros and bridges and stuff, where it's just this infinite reverb that just is constantly feeding back, and it almost just sounds like a long drone or a pad. Yeah, it's a really cool effect that I like. And then you're saying like what favorites for other things? Like
what's your favorite EQ that you use?
Favorite EQ, love Pultec, TubeTech, anything that's kind of like that. It's just, I love analog modeled EQs. SSL or Pultec or TubeTech is like where I'm reaching for that kind of sound.
What if you were to do, would you use that for subtractive stuff too?
Subtractive EQ, I'm looking for something more surgical and less tonal. So, just stock EQ, 7-band in Pro Tools, or if I'm in Cubase, there's just a channel EQ that you can use for surgical, subtractive kind of things that don't impart color or tone or characteristics. They're just meant for solving problems, removing, weird resonances and stuff if I find there's something strange or offensive in a recording or a production or a playing. I think, when it comes to subtractive, it's the surgical digital stuff. When it comes to additive, I'm looking for harmonic, rich, sweet. Like we're sweetening the sound. There's a time and a place for both. You can boost with those less colorful, like digital EQs and stuff, but it just isn't as exciting to me. So, and then I guess compressors, shout out UAD. They recently had a promotion for a free 1176, which you put me on.
Love it.
Yeah, I've been using that a lot, and it's the sound. Like you just can't go wrong with that FET style compression. Very grabby, very quick. Catch peaks or to get really aggressive in your face compression, and it's high quality. A lot of 1176 emulations kind of fall flat. In my opinion. So that really does it for me.
Yeah. I was going to ask the last one, if you could have any hardware, free dropped on your doorstep, no questions asked, what would it be?
It'll be a quick answer because it's top of mind. The UA, Universal Audio, the 6176 all-in-one channel strip, which I also have the digital version of. But the analog version of it just feels like such a cool piece to have in terms of that, 610.
That switches, right?
preamp.
You can switch the compressor style. Is that the one you showed me?
Yeah, you can switch between the LA2A or the 1176. And it's kind of an all-in-one, channel strip style unit, which I like. It's just, once again, it's cool to have that in the analog form. Because if I didn't have, I would probably do that in separate pieces. I would have the 610B preamp going into an 1176. And it just feels like it's easy to reach for, easy to get the sound I want because it's the sound I'm so familiar with. I'm a big fan of those all-in-one channel strip kind of stuff. I guess other would be Voxbox or the Avalon.
I love the Avalon.
Yeah?
I use it. I don't ever use it for recording really, but for mixing, I love using it. I love the EQ on it and also the tonality and the compressor. like compression.
Yeah, and that's what I love about those, like, I guess, analog EQs. Even if it's the plug-in version of the 6176 or the 610B or 610A, just it's hard to make those EQs kind of sound bad. It's just quick decisions. You're not sweeping and looking around. You're just like, does that sound good? Does it not sound good?
Yeah.
You decide, depends on the singer, depends on the room, depends on the mic, but you can make just quick decisions by turning things up or down.
Yeah. You can get pretty technical with the Avalon though. I didn't realize it until I really analyzed that like model, because it's like there's EQ frequencies like pretty like in depth for each note. Because there's like a bass, low, mid, and the like treble, but it's like underneath them there you can get so technical with the frequencies, especially like in that mid section. It goes from like
the divisions are a lot like finer.
Every 200 hertz, I think. So it's like 700, 900, 1000, like, and it keeps going up until like you can get really technical with it, which is why I love using it in the additive staging of like mastering and like mix bus.
Right.
And that's such a good high end. I love it.
Yeah. And it's one of those things. It's like, it's a limitation to have a stepped, because like the Neve preamps are like that too. When you're setting the gain or whatever.
I hate that. I'm sorry. I love Neve, but I hate the little
clicks into the steps.
Yeah. It's hard to like, especially recording, it's hard to ride. Like when you're like trying to catch a vocalist.
Oh yeah, you can't ride it. It's not continuous. Yeah. So, and continuous is probably the wrong word, because continuous would be like a digital thing where you can keep spinning.
It doesn't flow as you have to click something into place.
Yeah,
sorry, Neve, but that's my opinion.
I love the limitations of stepped like settings. Like when you look at the SSL, like bus compressor or whatever, you get 2 to 1, you get 4 to 1, it's like 10. It's like, you just have to decide. Attack, it's like, you can get 10 milliseconds of attack or 30. You can't get in between. So you just need to decide, is it going to be faster or slower? And I love that limitation, because it's like, you just have to
you got to do it.
And also it relies on your ears, because the difference between 10 and 30 is quite a lot. If you're doing your entire song being fed to that compressor, like 10 is going to control it a lot more. 30 is going to let a lot more. 30 milliseconds of attack will let the transient kind of pass through a little bit more. So it makes a huge difference on like something like a song, right? Whereas if I had a compressor that let me just enter a number, I'm like, well, I don't know what the song needs, but I kind of just give me a plate of 5 options and I'll pick from those 5, the attack, the release, whatever. So like you said, when you're trying to ride the gain in a performance, that's where that stuff falls short. But when it comes to EQ, I love being like, I can only be 500 hertz or I can only be like 2K. It's like, one of them is going to work for what I'm doing. I just got to figure out which one.
Yeah.
So I love playing in that limitation. It forces me to make better decisions, I feel like. Yeah. Having too many options was also kind of paralyzing too.
Yeah. Right? Like that's why I want, what is it? What plugin is it? The SBL EQ.
Okay, yeah.
I love it. It looks like it would sound really good, but there's so many controls. There's like, I swear to God, it goes by every 5 hertz. It's like, it builds up, and there's so many knobs on it, and there's a stereo section at the bottom to like play with the stereo image and everything. Yeah. But I want to get it. I want to learn it because I think that would be cool, but it does look terrifying.
Yeah. Quick shout out to UAD again. The Century Tube channel strip, I got free with my Pro Tools subscription. And that's one of those things with like stepped, like high end or low frequency bands that you just pick, you boost it, you decide if it's right for you or not right for you. And yeah, I just love decision making that is reliant on like the ears. Like once again, I'm not trying to solve problems when I reach for EQs like that. I just want to like, will I like this there? What will I like more? And I love the layout. Love that it's also an all-in-one strip where it's like you have the preamp, you have the compressor, you have an EQ, and you can set the EQ. I don't think you can limit on that one. But anyways, it's similar to the Opto, like LA2A kind of thing. It's just another flavor, another tool in the tool belt.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. Well, thank you so much. I think this concludes our episode today for the Record Lab podcast, but thank you so much for coming on. And is there anything you want to share with our listeners? Any advice you want to give them if you could go back and talk to Kenny when he was first starting out?
Yeah. Some advice that I would leave is just be a sponge. You're here to learn. If you're going to, post-secondary education, You're there to learn, be a sponge, ask questions, like be fearless about working in digital. That's a big one that I like, is like, you're not going to break anything, I don't think, in digital when you're cranking up an EQ or cranking up a compressor. Like you should be fearless in playing around in the digital domain, because that's how you learn. Like when you first start out as an audio engineer, as a sound person, you can't hear 3 dB of gain reduction on a compressor.
Yeah.
But you can probably hear 10 or 20, right? So you really crank it up and hear what it's doing. Same with EQ. Like you can see even some seasoned engineers will just, on a console, it's a little bit more scary because you can, break things and you might hurt some people that look at it. But like they're fearless. They're just like, they're making quick decisions. They're cranking things all the way up, like very extreme. But you need to find out those extremes first and then find a happy medium. But if you're afraid because your mentors or someone on YouTube University told you to only don't boost more than 2 or 3, don't compress more than 2 or 3, you're not going to take the risks that are going to help you level up your ears. Like you just need to get your ears on that stuff first. And I think, there's a pretty low risk way of doing that when you do it digitally. Yeah. In your program, whatever DAW, whatever software you're using. The saying, it's a song lyric, but sometimes you got to cross the line to know where it lays. Like you got to like, okay. Like that was too much, but actually here is good. Yeah. But you don't know that until you get over and then go back.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's all about training your ears too. Like because sometimes it's easy to visualize something and be like, oh, I can see it's getting 7 dB of like gain reduction, but it's like, do you hear that? And that goes back to that number thing you were talking about too. And that's something I had to learn was like, I need 1 to 3 dB of gain reduction because that's what everyone says. It's like, are you listening to this and can you hear that? Can you hear what you're doing? If not, I would reassess that, because like you want to be making moves strategically and doing stuff for a reason, not just because someone told me to do that, so I'm going to do that. It's like, this is adding something because you can listen to it, if that makes sense.
Right. And it's one of those things too, where it's like, as an amateur or as someone starting out, I should stop saying amateur, but like someone who's starting out and getting into audio and sound, are just like looking for the rules, the foundations and all that stuff. And they're afraid to break stuff and touch things they don't know anything about, or don't know enough about. So for me, I think it's an answer that nobody likes to hear, like use your ears, because someone with less experience on their ears doesn't have the hearing to use their ears. You can't prescribe that to someone. But when you look at a compressor, like in a recording session, like, I've had students like use the 1176 compressor and they're seeing the needle jump all over the place and it's set to 20-1 and they're, seeing a lot of action on the needle and they're like, isn't that like too much compression, whatever? But actually when you just, close your eyes or spin your chair around and listen, it actually doesn't sound overcompressed. Like the needle is saying, oh my God, it's flying all over the place and we're getting so much compression. Isn't this breaking the rules? But when you listen to it, you're like, but the vocal still sounds good. Like it still sounds good. It doesn't sound like all the dynamics have been sucked out of it kind of thing. Yeah. So in that case, use your ears. It's like, don't dial back on that compression because you're seeing too much needle movement. Actually,
assess it.
Like just listen and assess.
Use your ears is like the
use your ears. Once
episode
again,
of this episode title. Use your ears.
Use your ears. And the last bit is the how versus the why. Knowing how to do things, learning from your mentors, turn this that way. Like I'm all about intention. I'm all about purpose. Like when you reach for something, ask why you're doing it. It's like, because I was listening to the vocal and this microphone makes this singer sound nasally or boomy and boxy and muddy. Okay, so I'm reaching for this knob on this EQ because I think it will help clear up the vocal in this scenario, in this context. Yeah. Like know why you're reaching for things. Don't just add a compressor to add a compressor. Ask yourself why. Because, if you're using a splice sample of a vocal, it's already processed.
Exactly.
It's got compression on it. Unless you're doing
dry. It has stuff on it.
So you just need to stop and reflect and ask yourself why you're doing things. And I think that's where you learn too. It's like you just get better at understanding why you're doing the things you're doing, and you rely less on the handbook or the notes you took or like a YouTube video you watched, because it's like critical thinking. You got to think for yourself and be reactive to what's happening. And yeah, you just need to go with your gut sometimes.
Yeah. One thing that like really stuck with me too, like that I use in my everyday life all the time, like one of the main reasons I do compress during mixing is to glue. Yeah. It's like back to that bread and butter thing. It's like you're gluing things together to make it sound like one cohesive mix by using EQ and using glue. So if I'm sending all my drums to a bus and they're all different samples just shouting at each other, I want to glue them. I want to glue them to make it sound like one cohesive, like these are the drums. And then after that, that's going to go to a music bus with all my other instruments, which this is the music. And then like similar to vocals too. It's like if this is the lead vocal, these are the harmonies, and they're all getting glued until they sound perfect. That's just one thing that I learned that I was like, wow, compression kind of makes sense to me a little bit. I was like, this kind of makes sense.
And that's a delicate dance too, because it's like sometimes there's too much. And it's like the difference between like you said, a bunch of different sounds from all different places, sounding very separated, and then gluing them together and then sucking the dynamics out of it. And then everything sounds like it's all part of the same thing, and you have no separation between them, right? So it's like, depending on the genre, depending on the song, you can do that. You don't always have to, but I mean, glue via compression, or I guess the term we should use here is summing. When you sum a bunch of sounds together, you can help glue them together with audio effects like EQ, running them all through the same compressor, running them all through the same, sending all a bunch of sounds to the same reverb. They can glue together and sound like they're part of the same atmosphere or space. So yeah, it's one of those things, just another tool that you can use. You don't have to use it. A jazz trio might not need as much glue as a heavy metal track.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much for being on this episode. I hope everybody learned something today. Use your ears. You heard it here first. But thank you so much, Kenny. And thank you guys for listening.
Nathan, thank you so much for having me on the Record Lab podcast.
Of course,
this was
anytime.
A lot of fun. Good stuff. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.